Joining us now, Marsha Blackburg, Congresswoman, Republican, Tennessee, and also Marsha is a candidate for the U.S. Senate in Tennessee for the retiring Bob Corker. Now, of course, I just happen to believe that if she ran against them in a primary, she'd have clobbered him, but that's just me. But she is running for U.S. Senate, a true trailblazer. And it's always good to have her back. Congresswoman Blackburg, great to have you.
It's so good to be with you. Absolutely. And let me start by saying Merry Christmas, John. We don't have the PC police following us around and saying we can't say that anymore. So
I know,
Merry
that's
Christmas.
right. I forgot about that, right? We could say Merry Christmas. And so thank you for that. We're going to get to taxes and your Senate race. But, Marsha, you are a true trailblazer right now in some of the things that you're doing. And you look at the results that Republicans have had in the last 50 days, right? They got clobbered in Virginia. I mean, absolutely annihilated on November 7th. And then the debacle now that we've had in Alabama. And that's really what it is. It's a debacle. And some people say that a Republican Party has an existential crisis. How do you respond to that? And what's the answer?
Well, the answer is to have more true conservatives who are going to say, like me, I'm going to the Senate and I am going to carry conservative values and I am going to be a force for conservative change and get some things done. It is action time. And that's what people are wanting to see. You know, voters in 2010, they gave us the House. They gave us a bigger majority in 12. In 14, we said, give us the Senate. 16, give us the White House. And people are wanting to see things done. They want to see it pushed across the finish line. So that's what they're wanting to see. It is action time. And instead of people sitting around talking, they want people working and pushing things to the president's desk.
You know, Congresswoman Blackburg, the Trump tax cut. Now, we've had a lot of Democrats on our show, and I've told my audience the Democratic messaging is just, right now, they're just lying to people about what this tax cut is. I mean, I know you've been part of the negotiation. You've worked hard on it. Why do you believe if this tax cut passes, why do you believe that it's going to spur the type of economic growth that many of us believe it will?
Here's what you're going to see. With lowering the marginal rates and increasing the standard deduction, increasing the child tax credit, you're going to see more money in an individual's pocket. Think about it like this, John. Come January, you're going to be able to go to your human resource department and adjust your withholding because your marginal rate's going to be lower. That means every paycheck, you're going to have another $100 in that paycheck. We're repealing the Affordable Care Act mandate, which means you don't have to buy that high-priced insurance, or either you don't have to pay the tax penalty on it. In Tennessee, we had 122,000 families last year that had to pay that tax penalty to the IRS because they couldn't afford the high-priced insurance, and the tax penalty can be as much as $2,500, depending on the size of your family. So that is money in your pocket on a monthly basis. And that is going to spur economic growth and development. And then you see what is happening in the business tax. And people know that if their employer is able to reinvest in that business, that their wages are going to go up. There are going to be new jobs, which will help push wages up. Productivity pushes wages up. And you don't need to be an economist or an expert to understand that the more of the money you don't give to the federal government means more money you can use for what you want, for what you need, and that you're going to be able to spend that for your family.
And, you know, I want to reiterate, Congresswoman Marsha Blackburg, what you just said that is lost on a lot of people, that when this tax cut passes, you're able to go to your company, and I want to make this clear because it's real and it's now and it's real time.
Right.
Whatever your company is, you can go to your company, you can go to your human resources department, and you can increase your level of deductions or decrease the amount of withholding,
right?
Which can be anywhere, depending on what you make. It could be $50 to $150 a paycheck, because your taxes are going to go down. So if your taxes go down, you don't have to withhold as much. So you don't get the savings at the end. You get the savings like in January, right?
That's right. It's real-time savings. And the way this bill is constructed, it is real-time money in the pocket for individual filers. They're going to have less coming out of that paycheck and more in their pocket every single month. They're not going to have to buy the high-priced insurance, and they're not going to have to pay the federal government a penalty for not buying something that they don't want and can't afford. So, yes, there again, real-time savings. And it's not something you're having to wait a year to see. Now, a lot of people on the left, the naysayers, are saying, well, because you're changing all the deductions on the business side, it's not going to really help when you lower the rate. I have talked to so many of our employers. I have talked to our small businesses. Lowering that rate, holding that first $75,000 of profit for these small businesses and pass-through entities, holding that at a 9% rate, what you're talking about is money that goes into hiring people. It goes into giving a long overdue wage. It goes into modernization. And here's the thing, when you get rid of that individual mandate and companies aren't fearful of what that's going to do to them with insurance costs, then they may hire more than 50 people. And Obamacare, this gets lost a lot of times, John. The way the bill was constructed, you were mandated, the employer mandate kicked in at 50 people. And so people are now beginning to say, you know what, if they get rid of this individual mandate, I bet you they'll turn around and we'll get this employer mandate out of the way and we'll be able to hire more people. So let's gear up. Let's start growing this business. And people will be dreaming those big dreams once again and looking at how they grow those businesses and hire more people. That is jobs growth, not just on the coast and not just in the big cities, but all across the country.
Congresswoman Blackburg, I haven't even thought of that, and I'm glad you brought it up. So let's get to this tax bill where you're getting rid of the tax, the mandate, the Obama mandate tax, which basically if you don't buy the right insurance, you have to pay a tax. That's gone now, and of course you can do that because Supreme Court Justice John Roberts ruled that it was indeed a tax, and Congress can levy taxes. So a tax is a tax. Now you're getting rid of that tax, right? That's all it is a tax. But I want to get to that because this is lost on people also. Because the tax is gone, you can now buy whatever insurance you want, right? Because under the tax, under the Obama mandate tax, if your insurance didn't meet the standards, you had to pay a fine, right? So now the way I'm understanding it, and correct me, if I'm a single person and I just want to buy catastrophic insurance with a $15,000 deductible, just if something bad happens to me and I want to pay $90 a month for that, I now have that option, right?
That is correct. You'll be able to do that without facing an IRS penalty. And the penalty in Tennessee last year, 122,000 families had to pay the IRS penalty. Now, out of that 122,000 families that paid that penalty, 100,000 of those families had incomes of $50,000 or less. So this is how the tax is so regressive, and it penalizes those who can least afford it. So what it did was to put families who could not afford to buy the Affordable Care Act exchange product. And then once they bought it, most people would tell us they couldn't afford to use it. But if they decided they wanted to buy just a catastrophic plan, or if they wanted a health savings account because they wanted to manage their own health care, then they had to pay a penalty to the IRS because it was not Affordable Care Act compliant or Obamacare compliant. And that penalty could be as much as $2,500 depending on the size of your family. So that is where this really penalized middle-income families and forced them, many of these are small business owners, forced them to either buy a product they couldn't afford or forced them to pay additional money to the IRS because they did not buy that specific product.
I tell you what, this is another one of the ramifications of this tax cut package that nobody really is focused on, and you're spot on with it, especially that fact that you just gave me, Congresswoman Blackburn, about the number of people making under $50,000 who had to pay that fine just in Tennessee. I mean, that is a huge number of people. And obviously, if you're making $50,000, you don't have a lot of extra money. Now you have to pay an extra tax, and you're basically just giving the money to the government. You're not getting anything in return because you don't have the insurance. That's insane. And that's going away. One other thing I want to mention on this tax cut plan, because we were talking about the adjustments you're going to get immediately if this passes in your paycheck in January and February, because the amount that is withheld from your check is going to go down. For those that are in work as an independent contractor on a 1099, you have to pay your taxes quarterly, right? So you're not going to get the benefit in January, but when you have to pay your first quarter estimated taxes as a contractor or a 1099 employee, and your taxes go down, the amount that you're sending the government, based if you have the same basic estimated income level, that'll go down. So the quarterly check that you send in goes down, which puts more money in your pocket as well. So, and we have a lot of people today that work on a 1099 that have various jobs, or they call the gig economy. That's going to impact, and a lot of millennials working that way now will also see the amount of money that they have to spend, Congresswoman, go down. When are we actually going to get the vote, Marsha?
I think what you will see is the bill will be probably posted tomorrow, and then the Senate will take their vote Monday or Tuesday, and then the bill will come to us. So we hope to have it finished, signed, sealed, delivered, all yours to the president by the time we get to the end of next week.
Marsha, do you have the votes right now?
Yeah, I think we do.
One thing you mentioned that I want you to expand on, you talked about the 50 employee maximum that you can have without the business having to deal with the Obamacare rules. Now, that's not in this bill, right? But you're mentioning that you think that domino could fall. Explain that.
Well, I think that once you begin this process of working through the mandates that are embodied in the Affordable Care Act and the individual mandate goes away, then it would be nice, and I think it's a worthy goal of ours, to focus on the employer mandate. And then let's focus on getting the excise tax. They called it the Cadillac tax that was in healthcare that put an extra tax on all of these premium policies that companies offer. And a lot of our friends that are in unions were really opposed to that Cadillac tax, because what it does is to limit their ability to have, it taxes them on the ability to have a premium healthcare product. So, these are all reasons the Affordable Care Act needs to get off the book. And getting the individual mandate out of the way is one thing that is going to bring relief to hardworking Americans. It is going to bring relief to 122,000 Tennessee families. And I tell you, I've got to head to the floor in a few minutes, but I'll love to come back and talk with you about that, and also talk about the issues around broadband expansion and the Internet.
Let's have you back early next week, Congresswoman, so we can talk about that today. Obviously, the focus right now on getting this tax package passed. I want to thank you for your time. For more information, you can go to MarshaBlackburn.com, MarshaBlackburn.com. Check out her site. She's a candidate for U.S. Senate in Tennessee, and she's a trailblazer. And in my estimation, she's the answer to the Republican Party's existential crisis. Marsha Blackburn, And you're welcome to tell, Congresswoman, anybody you know that I said that. You're the answer to their crisis.
I
True
appreciate
trailblazer.
that. Hey, listen, have a great day. We'll talk next week.
Thank you, John Fredericks Radio Network. Good to have you with us. Boy, wouldn't you love to get Marsha Blackburn in the U.S. Senate as a Republican?